Dear trading friends, after a week, finally another update video on Bitcoin. We might also take a look at altcoins, but with altcoins and cryptocurrencies in general, things are a bit difficult at the moment because of the news that is currently dominating the market. And personally, if we zoom out now, especially with Bitcoin, we actually have a very, very long sideways trend without any real decision on direction. What do I mean by that? We simply aren't hitting any new target levels according to my trading strategy with the Fibonacci extension. There were a few opportunities that could have been traded this week. There was the short, for example, but even that one didn't really work out, up to this liquidation zone. And now overnight there was another pump simply because Trump said something positive again. Before that, there was something negative. And that's what's currently driving the crypto market back and forth a bit, whether we're talking about Bitcoin or the altcoins. Accordingly, I've prepared a few things. We're going to take a look at gold, silver, oil, the Nasdaq and the S&P. They actually have really clean price action. I've been short on the S&P since up here, but I'll also post an update about that in the Signal group. Post a little update for the Signal group as well. At the moment, everything is green with all the trading bots. Even the position that's still open on Bitcoin is all green too. So that's really working wonderfully. Whether it's on PIONEX or if we look at the bots we've set up on Bitget, they're all in profit as well. So it's really great to see at the moment. And apart from that, I actually only have my swing positions open, which we can see here now. Before we continue briefly, as I announced in the Telegram group, why was I offline for a week? Offline? I said I had a procedure done, nothing health related, fortunately. So thank you very much to everyone for the well wishes I received in the group, but also privately from you. I really, really appreciate that. But I didn't do anything else, and you may have already noticed it from my head. I just had a hair transplant, but my body reacted extremely to it. I'll show you a few photos of what I looked like afterwards. And I really mean it when I say my body reacted extremely, because my condition got worse day by day, and I really couldn't sit in front of the chart. I couldn't record a video. I mean, maybe it would have gone viral if I had made videos with a face like that, but I just wasn't able to do it at all. All right, so let's continue now with the trades. But what I did do because of the liquidation we just had here with Bitcoin is that we'll also take a closer look at the level 2 data today, because that gives us a bit more information about the next possible move. Because we've now gone all the way up to 70,000 here. We've picked up an incredible amount of new liquidity. That's also the reason why I opened a small short position here, which I'm also willing to scale further. But this isn't for the Signal group, it's a risk trade that I'm taking on myself. Apart from that, we also see liquidations, quite a lot on a weekly basis, below us, and we must not forget that we have CME gaps due to the pump that happened overnight. With this wonderful surge, a CME gap has formed in Bitcoin down to around 67,160. And for Ethereum, down to 2,115. There's also still an open CME gap in US dollars, which is also the reason why I say I'm trying to short it now. I'll also tell you the reason why I'm trying to short it. If we briefly look at the level 2 data, you know it, whales and dolphins, but we'll leave out the dolphins. The whales are very interesting. Not so long ago, I told you that when the whales start buying, that's here, the yellow area, it's usually a sign that they expect the price to keep falling. That's been the case in 85 to 90% of situations. And they keep accumulating. But what they're doing now is they're still selling off, as you can see here. The last update was actually yesterday on Sunday. Even then they sold off again during this pump. But as long as they're not accumulating massively, I would still be a bit cautious about the whole market. We also must not forget the geopolitical situation. We also saw the last ETF update on Friday. There was an inflow of 11 million in Bitcoin, but an outflow of 471 million. So with the ETFs. That's why it's not all that great. And if we now take a look at the whale orders and large trades, we also see something here. Interesting. Exactly where the new liquidation happened, which I showed you, there was an order cluster here. And if we go even higher, up to 75,000, that's where the next interesting area is, where there's quite a lot going on. And if we now take a look at what shorts were filled here, you'll see we had around 5 billion that went into short positions here with this rise that happened from yesterday to today. And these were all limit orders that were placed here, so quite a lot. And if we go further down, a new large gap has formed between about 61,000 and 60,000, where the next whales have placed their orders. We shouldn't ignore this, as it could get interesting if we go down and fill our CME gap. I'll display that here again as well. I also have the indicator for the CME gap, so you can see exactly where it is in detail. And that would be exactly this case here. So up to this point, that's where I would see my short position. If we look at this on the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, the reason why I'm also trying a short now is because, technically speaking, the RSI is at a really high level here. And I want to show you a theory that is becoming very interesting for me now. whether the short works out or not. If it doesn't, I'll take the loss, but let's take a look at what happens when we enter the 70 to 80 range on the RSI in the 4-hour chart. In the past, after reaching this overbought area, there was regularly a very strong sell-off. Here too, we experienced another sell-off. And even if we look back further, whenever we were this high, nothing else happened except, and you can see it here again, another massive sell-off downward. And here as well, there was a sell-off downward. That means we shouldn't ignore this level of RSI at such heights. Because every time we were at these levels, we experienced a massive drop afterwards, fallen. And that's what I'd like to speculate on. But what if we continue to rise? Because we obviously need liquidation. Heat map, we still have up to 72,000 available here on a 2-week basis. If we then switch to a monthly basis, we also see something very different about ourselves. Exciting. And that's where a divergence might form. I would like to share them with you. So the next level, which is also very interesting to me purely from a technical perspective, but also considering the liquidation, is around 72,500 or so, but then also the 75,000 US dollars. And if we look at this just from a technical analysis standpoint, exactly this area between 72,000 and 75,000, if I go back here, would, purely based on the order blocks, be precisely this area here where the first possible rejection level would be. And then the second area for me in this case would be right here again. If we really do rise that far, but for me this is actually a rejection zone that I could see. Even if we might go up now, I would still have the opportunity here, based on price action, to close a position in profit if we really continue to move higher. Personally, I don't currently expect that. Geopolitical situation, the price movement in Bitcoin is more driven by news, for example, if Trump posts something. Additionally, there's also the CME gap, which is very interesting and is below us. Because this flag that we broke down from, we went back in, then out again, then back in. So it's actually better to trade this on a smaller time frame rather than looking for swing entries here. But it's precisely this area. If Bitcoin continues to rise, I will scale up my short position in this area, which I opened here in Bitunix in order to increase my average entry price. And if everything works out, I'll take the profits on the way down, at least until we reach the CME gap. Why is this still interesting? If we go back to the RSI, and if we continue to rise now, I'll make the RSI a bit smaller now, so we can see it a little more clearly. Then I would still have the following possibility here, that the price might consolidate, drop a little, and then rise again. And really pick up that liquidity I mentioned earlier once more, and only then see a rejection to the downside. Then we would have the possibility here with this calming down and a massive short-term rise, and here too with the likelihood of a bearish divergence that could develop here. And of course that's interesting to me. If I'm not mistaken, on the 1-hour chart I think we're already in it. From what I've just seen, yes, that's exactly where we are. In these small areas we already have a bearish divergence, which can lead to a short-term rejection. Here too, we are strongly overbought. At 580, but the 1-hour chart is never that meaningful. That's why, for me, this is just the first opportunity to go short. If something happens right away, then that's fine. If not, I'll scale in again with the possibility of targeting the 4-hour chart. Judd bearish divergence. But otherwise, to be honest, from a Fibonacci perspective, I'm being a bit cautious at the moment. Even if I turn on my Fibonacci lines now, we would have a possible bullish sequence, which actually isn't that uninteresting, I have to admit, because from this area, we've now had a breakout above this high again. And if we look at this here now, with my indicator, we would have the possibility at the 0.618 support level, which is very interesting, as that would also be the flag, which would also be the flag bottom again. But in this case, I'm actually being cautious because of the CMI gap. What else would be interesting at the 0.618? Simply because we have a fair value gap here. If I turn this on again here, you'll see it light up in a moment. It's exactly this area here. So this coincides with the 0.618 Fibonacci, which is of course very, very exciting. But this is just the current snapshot because the price will probably change again now. We'll see where things go with the US market opening. Otherwise, just to wrap up, since I said that everything looks clean to me at the moment, if we look at the price action S&P 500, we see something similar with the Nasdaq. Very interesting entry level. At the 0.618 level, it's actually a bit higher. If I include that, I would have to draw it in here again or edit my indicator now. But it's exactly this level where we simultaneously have this rejection level from the trend line. Then we see the 0.5 Fibonacci at 24,500. And if I'm not mistaken, we also have the EMAs on the daily chart where we could wick above them. I see a super interesting level for oil. So, to be honest, with oil, I'll probably prepare for a short position. We have a massive bearish divergence here when we look at oil, which shouldn't be ignored, Because if we now look at oil, where our high was right in this area, and take this as a trend line, and we see that we've made a new high while the RSI, but in this case, it was strongly rejected. So for me, that would be an opportunity to go short. Accordingly, we have to be extremely cautious given the geopolitical situation, because if things escalate further in the coming days, oil will simply continue to break out, since it is completely dependent on what is currently happening with the war situation. But even on a smaller time frame, if we look at the hourly chart, we can see here a nice bearish divergence has formed here with the rising price and the falling RSI. And accordingly, for me, this is actually a short opportunity, but it is very, very risky. And with the S&P, as I mentioned, I've been short there for a while now. But here too, I see an opportunity purely based on the Fibonacci level. For a trading bot, I have to move to a higher time frame, because here too, things get very, very interesting with the upward movement. Fibonacci level. At 66,667, we see that we have the 0.5 Fibonacci, where at the same time we could also hit the 200 SMA resistance. And that would be exactly this area here. So for me, this is an opportunity for a short bot, or alternatively, a short position that I will be entering. Maybe I'll scale my current position, which I already have open here, or I'll open a new one on PIONEX to include this move. Because once we're in there, we really have an incredibly good setup here. Down to the 0.5 Fibonacci. If we really get a drawdown here, then this could be a bullish price action continuation, or alternatively, a stronger correction into these levels, with a new recovery, which might then bring us even lower prices again. And that's exactly what I'm aiming for right now. Now with the real world assets, because crypto just isn't giving me any real clean price action at the moment. And of course, I'm still on the lookout for trades. These are currently the events that I see for myself right now. I'm going to short the NASDAQ, I'm going to short the S&P 500, and I'll probably short oil as well. But gold is also getting very, very interesting, since we've now worked through our T4, the 0.5 Fibonacci level in this case. It was already tested once, worked for a short time, but gold is rising again. But why is the 0.618 Fibonacci level so interesting? Do you see the fair value gap here? And that's going to be super interesting for me as well, to open a new short position here, simply to close this fair value gap. But also, if we look closely now in this area here, let's mark it. There was support several times before the sharp sell-off went exactly down into this area. So a strong sell-off, very aggressive, without a real retest to collect the liquidity here. For me, I now see the 0.618. So at 4,914, I see this as a very interesting level for a short position. We have a similar example with silver. I just need to quickly turn off the smart money concepts indicator. Here too, actually, a nice continuation, the price action deviation. Accordingly, I also see the $78 to $82 range as a possible short position here in order to see lower prices. Because especially with silver, we still have quite a bit of room to the downside to see lower prices here. That's it for the first update videos after this week. I would love to show you a lot more setups when it comes to crypto, but let's see what the market opening brings. Maybe I'll go live again in the evening, or provide another update video where I'll show how I plan to proceed. With that in mind, see you next time.